You are welcome to LIS106, the foundation of library and information systems, institutions, and services. My name is Babaroti Oluwaseun, your facilitator for this course. In a moment, I will be sharing my screen. In a moment, I shall be sharing my screen. And as people come on board, we will add them. I'm about to share my screen now. I'm about to share my screen. If you can see my screen, please let me know. Just let me know if you can see my screen. Can you see that my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Let's look at the good. Let's look at the lesson overview. Today we'll be looking at the historical and developmental stages of libraries from the Great Alexandria era to the 21st century. The history of library began with the first efforts to organize collection of documents in ancient times. And there was no significant difference between record rooms and libraries, and libraries have existed since record has been kept. You know, several collections of records were destroyed during war, and a lot of them were stolen. And however, libraries still forge ahead and was on board all through the difficult period. Do you know that the writing was actually invented during 5,500 years ago, between 5,500 years ago and 6,000 years ago? That was when writing was actually invented. And this was done by the Sumerians in Mesopotamia. They were the first people that developed the first writing system. That's just about the lesson overview. Let's quickly look at our lesson objectives for today. After completing this lesson, you will be able to understand library history in the Great Alexandria era, understand library history in the monarchical era, to the invention of, okay, I'm meeting another person now. You're welcome, Grace Ellen. Understand library history in the monarchical era, all through the time of invention of printing. Sorry about that. Okay, good. Good. Time of the printing machine, when printing press was invented. Also, you also learn about the history, library history in the 16th, 19th, 28th, and 21st century. Now, let's quickly look at our next slide. The Alexandria era library. You can see, where's my mouse? Okay. You can see my mouse. That's that picture you're seeing there. That's the Great Alexandria library that was built in Egypt that was done in the 3rd century BC until Roman conquest of Egypt in 30 BC. In that picture, you will see librarians there studying, arranging. Look at the man here climbing a stair, a ladder, arranging scrolls. Arranging scrolls. So Alexander the Great founded the library in 332 BC, and the library was really mighty and huge. And the library was referred to as House of Writing. Those days, kings were in charge of libraries. Imagine, kings were in charge of libraries, and libraries were situated in the palace. And they were called House of Writing, a place of records of the palace of the king. Then in 2000 BC, Egypt elites began to establish private libraries, and temples became institutions of learning. Scholars and scribes then were known as now librarians. Those days, librarians were actually scholars and scribes, and they were trained, to read and write the Egyptian official language called hieroglyphics, and a lot of them last over 2,000 characters, hieroglyphics characters, So, and after that, the Greek also developed their own alphabet symbols, which they wanted to use to replace Egyptian culture and writing. And the quest for knowledge by the Greeks brought about the establishment of libraries, which flourished through a well-organized process. You can see that diagram there, that same diagram. Well-established library. Then in the 6th century, the Greeks established the first library in Athens and Samos. In the 4th century, precisely 331 BC, Alexander the Great established the first world's greatest library. While in 284 BC, Ptolemy, that word is pronounced Ptolemy, but pronouncing all these ancient words could be actually fun and difficult at times. I had to go to Google and to learn how to pronounce the word Ptolemy. Ptolemy. So Ptolemy I inaugurated the Alexander Museum and Library, while Ptolemy II increased the library collection by acquiring Aristotle's private library. Imagine by 250 BC, Alexandria main library had about 490,000 collections of rolls. Those days, rolls were like our own modern day books. That's where records are being stored. Yes. Now let's look at our class activity. This class activity will be very useful and to aid you while writing your test. And we may not really have more time to discuss about this activity now because of want of time. We only have about 30 minutes to spend here. So differentiate between the archives and the library and when was writing invented. All these things we had already discussed. So if you read your lesson notes, you'll find them there. Good. We are moving to the next era, the monarchical era, to the invention of printing machine. See, monarchical era, that was when Christianity That was when Christianity began to establish monasteries. In 391 BC, sorry, 391 AD, the rise of Christianity in 391 AD gave back to monastery who began books collection by the end of 5th century. And the monks were actually the one collecting both secular and religious materials and dedicated themselves to the discovery of knowledge not available elsewhere. So in the 2nd century AD, scholars and teachers began to form guilds that led to the establishment of universities and faculties. And faculties were created. You can see that during this time, universities were established, and in the universities, faculties were created. And all these were approved either by the king or pope. I can say some people are really laughing there. You mean king and pope approve universities? Yes, that was how it was done in those days. Now let's move to the invention of printing machine. Well, the first first printing machine was manufactured in 1439 by Johannes Gutenberg. Can you pronounce that name? Johannes Gutenberg. That was when the first machine was actually invented. Or try and pronounce the name if you can. They are all interesting names, you know. Good. Let's look at our activities for that session. Well, what gave birth to monasteries? Yes, of course, we said the rise of Christianity gave birth to monasteries. When were guilds that led to the establishment of universities and faculties created. When you read your lesson notes, you get that there, or you watch the video, you get that there. So let's move to the next lesson because of our time. Yes. The 16th and 19th century libraries. In the 16th century library, in the 16th century, public reference library emerged. European government, please excuse me, hold on. Sorry about that. I'm being distracted by some noise. I need to go on. So, in the 16th century, public reference libraries emerged. European government took over many religious and private libraries and converted to public libraries. And after the 1792 revolution, France confiscated over 8 million books and deployed them to the public library. Imagine, you know, earlier I said that those days they used to fight. I mean, the war, and they confiscate people's library materials, and they use it to establish. Yes, so that's exactly what happened here. France confiscated over 8 million books and deployed them to the public library. Anyway, in this case, I don't think they were really fighting there. I just think they just decided to take over all the religious and private library and turn them to public. Rental libraries sprang up in United Kingdom. They were public libraries that charge a fee to borrow books. Imagine. Yes, those days they borrow books and you pay a fee to borrow books. All this happened in the 16th century. Now let's look at the 19th century. It was quite difficult managing libraries in this century due to the inadequacy of funds for acquisition, increased size, poor service standards, and inconsistent funds for acquisition. So it was part a little bit difficult. But there was a man called Anthony Panizzi of the British Museum. That was between 1831 and 1866 that revolutionized library administration and enforced compliance to library objectives. Yeah, enforced compliance to library objectives. And the modern day public library started in England by the Committee of Public Libraries between 1847 to 1849. And you see that in 1850, the Public Libraries Act was enacted, empowering local councils to generate funds for public library. So these events happened during the 19th century. Let's move to the 20th century. Before that, we have some activity, class activity here, and says explain the event that happened in the 16th century. What was the contribution of Anthony Panizzi in the 19th century? And who is Andrew Carnegie? And what role did he play in the 19th century? I'm sure you've heard about. If you've not heard about that name, you can Google it and just to find out who Andrew Carnegie really is. Let's move to the 20th century. Yes, this is the century of this is information technology age. That was when information technologies began to ravage the whole space, which radically changed the conceptual framework of libraries. The invention of computers, increased access to enormous information, and the traditional library method of information dissemination through lending of books, interlibrary loans were taken over. Using electronic databases, for example, here in a land library, you have electronic databases in a virtual library. You want to do some research and you need reference material when you come to the library, we can actually get you some electronic databases or give you links to some journals that will help you in writing your project or seminar, whatever. All this began in the 20th century. Of course, the proliferation of computers, housing electronic library connection with a global electronic network connection gave back to virtual libraries. Yes, we said that earlier. So our professional librarians, our role has evolved as they too had to learn and train library users on how to use all these electronic databases. And let's move to the next slide. That's probably the last one there. Okay, before that, let's look at our activity for today. Discuss the major reforms of the library in 20th century. What are virtual library? I expect you, when you go through your lesson notes and you watch the videos, you listen to the slides, yes, the videos, all these are there, and it's an avenue for you to know more about the library. Now let's quickly look at the 21st century library. The 21st century library focuses more on the effects of cultural, social, demographic, political, economic, and technological trends on reading habits. As digital literacy skills rise, library engage in training users that are not proficient in the use of digital tools. Yes, and this 21st century library is faced with challenge of growth in online, as for example, this is an ODL institution, now it's an ODL institution, and we engage in online education and learning. And of course, most of our tools are electronics. Use your computer, use your phone. You can read, like for example, we are in this Zoom meeting now, receiving lectures via the Zoom. It's a platform for sharing knowledge, for passing across knowledge. And the constant evolution of new technologies in the 21st century affects the method of information collections retrieval process, and the use and also use it. And now library experience dwindling user patronage due to the availability of electronic resources. Yes, still we have fewer users. Why? Because most times users log in to their library remotely and download their articles, read their books. Like you can easily download your course material. You don't need to come to the library to do that, and read in the convenience of your home. So these are the things that are happening in the 21st century library. Okay then, activity. What is the focus of the 21st century library? Then what gave back to the training users that are not proficient in the use of digital tools? All this, you see all this in your learning lesson notes. Conclusion: in today's lesson, you have learned about the history of Alexandria era library, the history of monarchical era library with the invention of printing machine, and the history of the library in the 16th, 19th, 28th, and 21st century. So, thank you for listening. My name is Oluwaseun Babarotimi. I would like to share my screen now. If you have any question, yeah. Maybe, do you have any question?
No, sir.
Wasilat, I hope you are on board. Okay, I can see some chat messages.
I'm on board. I'm at work, but I'm in out.
Okay, fine. Do you have any question?
No, sir.
Okay. I also like to ask if you have actually submitted your discussion, your contribution in the discussion forum. I want you to log into the platform, VL platform, and make a submission. Submit your thought about today's discussion on the platform. Well,
all right, sir.
That's good. So, is there any challenge you like to share? You want to share with me concerning accessing your VLE platform?
Yes, I log in, and you sent to me that you confirmed my my registration. You sent to my email, but only for me. Each time I want to log in, I find it so difficult. And today I even try it. He said that I've already used the user's number I put. That was my initial login. So